Hello everybody, hope you're doing marvellously well. We're back for another FAQ Friday. Hello, I hope you're all doing marvellously well. I hope you're staying safe, happy and healthy. As ever, please hit the subscribe button if you haven't already subscribed. You can also go to producelikeapro.com, sign up for the email list, and you can join the academy. It's pretty darn amazing. There's about 3,200 people in there now, and they're all absolutely amazing and incredibly supportive. You're going to learn a lot, and you're going to find a lot of people that can help you. Not just me. There's tons of people in there that can help. We've got some great questions here, so let's get started. In the history books of rock and roll, jazz, and country music, there are numerous tales about some of the most creative, gifted, and genius artists have battled personal demons, substance abuse, alcoholism, whatever. As a producer, engineer, and mixer, how do you handle sessions with people that are living on the edge? How do you keep control of situations and still coax incredible performances of someone who is clearly high or intoxicated? Firstly, let me say, alcoholism and drug addiction is a very, very serious thing. If you are going through these things and you need help, please don't hesitate to reach out to AA or NA. The support mechanisms there are amazing. If you're in a situation where you need rehab and you're a musician, you work in the music industry, in any capacity, Music Cares is incredible as well. There is so many wonderful things. We'll put a link to Music Cares down here. If you are able to, donate to Music Cares. They help so many people. And if you need help, contact your local AA or NA, wherever you are in the world. This is very serious. Artists in particular are very vulnerable to drugs and alcohol. They live on a lot of insecurities and fear. It seems to go hand in hand with creativity. But I can tell you that some of the greatest people I know have come through that, come out the other side, and are now all over the world as some of the greatest musicians and creators, and they're the most helpful and supportive people. So if you can overcome it, it can empower you to an incredible life. I think there is a couple of distinct answers to this question. First of all, I've definitely worked with people that have been drunk or high and in the studio, sometimes to a sort of jolly level and a couple of times to a completely, incapacitated, lying there, completely useless. I can tell some stories to that effect. I remember one particular singer I worked with didn't show up at the studio for 4 days to sing. And then we flew to him because we were on the West Coast. We went to the East Coast, went to Boston. He then did show up on the 1 day or 2 days that we were there. He showed up at about 10 or 11 o'clock on the first day at night. So now he's like nearly 5 days late for a session. He was already pretty drunk, and I think I got 3 takes out of him. And then he didn't show back up again the next day. In fact, it was just me working on my own the next day. Neither he nor the A&R guys showed up till the next day, till about 7 in the evening, by which stage I'd tracked some guitars, comped the vocal, tuned a couple of notes, and the song that you heard on the radio was a fairly big hit. Was those 3 takes comped and tuned? I've experienced musicians being completely, incapable of doing anything, all in between, between mildly drunk to whatever. How do I deal with it? Well, quite frankly, I haven't dealt with it that much. In all of the records I've made, of which, it's definitely in the high hundreds of albums and singles and just recordings. There was a period not so long ago, only a few months ago, where you would do 3 or 4 sessions in a day. And the reason why do I bring that up? Well, I bring that up because if you don't work with people that are taking this seriously, you won't be able to do that kind of work. If you've got somebody who shows up hours late for the first session of the day, how are you going to do your second one if your first client is arriving as the second one's supposed to start? I mean, there's not much tolerance for it. But when you talk about the past, bear in mind that that's not entirely true what you're talking about. Yes, guys and girls in bands did like to get stoned and drunk and all this kind of stuff. But when they started their careers, almost all of them started without drug problems, without drinking problems. And you can go back and research anybody, and they made records in days, then weeks, and then months. And they turned into these long-winded processes because, yes, they were high and drunk. But it's interesting, like Dylan Thomas, I'm a huge fan of Dylan Thomas. Under Milkwood is one of my favorite books. It's a beautiful play. If you've ever heard it or read the book, highly recommend it. Dylan Thomas very famously wrote a lot of literature up until he became very, very successful. And then when he became very, very successful, he almost completely dried up. He drank more and died prematurely. I'm a huge fan of his, so just stating that once more. When he didn't have such a bad drinking problem, he was a lot more effective as a writer. Now, there are plenty of instances, and loads of people will debate me about how, blah, 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 took acid and wrote this great song and other people got high. I know there's tons of those kind of things. Most of the people we love, like the William Burroughs kind of characters, did do these and did have drug problems. They also wrote like 1/10 of the amount of great work that somebody who didn't have drink or drug problems. I have no judgment against people that have issues because I have them in abundance. I personally don't drink or do drugs. I stopped all that many, many years ago to focus on my career and to be able to get married and raise a family and, buy a house and do all the things that we have to do. I need to get up in the morning and be motivated and do my job and support my family and the people that work with me and around me. We all have to make money together and make a living and look after each other. I can't be an alcoholic or a drug addict that's lying on a couch being woken up to play a guitar part. I know we romanticize about that, but there is no patience for that in the world anymore. If you really are in that situation, I implore you to get help. And I can tell you there are many, many people that can help you. And if you're working with artists like that, you have to set boundaries. You do not want to have an artist passed out on your couch that needs to be singing or playing that is pretty hard to get together. Kick them out of the session. Tell them to come back when they're straight. You cannot afford to run your life around dysfunction. However, you can be loving and supportive. You don't have to be like aggressive with them. You can just say, look, we can't do this. You can't sing at the moment. You can't perform at the moment. Let's do this when you can. It's not an aggressive thing. You're just laying down a clear boundary. And if you lay down that clear boundary, they will respect you. They will wake up in the morning sober. They'll realize that they blew the chance. And if they don't realize and they're angry at you and they do have alcoholism, there's not really much you can do about it. You cannot, I promise you cannot be blamed for other people's actions. And it does happen. As that phrase goes, and I'm sure you've heard this phrase many times, you can bring a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. Well, when it comes to alcoholics and drug addicts, there's one stage further. Not only can you not make them drink, you can only be the water. Meaning, just to clarify, you cannot tell somebody, oh, you need to get sober. It doesn't work like that. You need to get clean. You have to wait for them to come to you and say, I have a problem. I need to get sober. I need to get clean. And if you're in that situation, then you can help somebody. There are plenty of incredible helplines. I know that there is a 24-hour Alcoholics Anonymous phone line. So if you are working with people that have bad drink or drugs problems, you need to get them to be in contact with AA or NA and all of the other different things. There's plenty of incredible resources out there for people that have alcohol and drugs issues. And when it comes to you running your business, you have to have not necessarily a zero tolerance, because a band coming into the studio having a few beers and a pizza is normal. They're coming to the studio, they're having fun. A guy or girl lying on your couch completely passed out, in a pool of their own vomit, that's not normal. And if it's happening repeatedly, it certainly is not normal. So, bear that in mind. We over-romanticize and glamorize drug addiction and alcoholism, but the reality is yes, there were records that were made with drug addicts and alcoholics. Of course there were. And some of the people I admire as artists have been through those peaks and troughs of different alcoholism and drugs. Some of the best musicians in the world have been in and out of it, but go and read their stories. They'll all tell you when they were at their lowest ebb of drugs and alcohol, they weren't creating, They weren't touring, or they were touring and they were drunk and they weren't able to perform. Those are the truths. Those are the stories. Not this whole idea of like they took this magic pill and were really happy and high and made loads of great records. I'm sure people will debate me on this, but without breaking any kind of anonymity, I can tell you I'm friends with a lot of those people that have been through that, and they will all say they did not create great works of art when they were high. They did not create great music when they were drunk off their skull. What they did do is create a huge barrier between them and their creativity. And whether you believe in God or not, that's fine. But you remember that phrase, it works through you? Well, just think about that in terms of creativity. If the creativity is flowing through you, drugs and alcohol, especially used in excessive amounts, block that. They block that creativity. Now, I don't want to argue with anybody who says that they need a beer to relax. I get it. I'm not judging somebody who needs a drink or something like that, but we shouldn't over-romanticize alcoholism and drug addiction because, and I'm not saying you are, don't get me wrong, but I'm just saying we have to be careful because there are certain people that are very vulnerable. They maybe come from alcoholic families, from drug addictive families, and they have the genetics. And we have to be careful because if we over-romanticize it, it's great for your average guy who can have a few beers, get a bit drunk, go and play some stuff. Fantastic. But for some people, it's a death sentence. And I mean that wholeheartedly because I have seen that and I've experienced that around me. It can be a death sentence for some people. So the way I deal with it is I have a zero tolerance for anybody who's incapable of doing their job. If they can't sing or perform, then they shouldn't be in the studio. If they need to go away for a couple of hours and sober up and that works, great. But if I can't work on the music and do something else, really super creative, great. Then I'll just stop that session and we'll do something else. The blessing is I rarely these days work with anybody with alcohol or drug problems. We just don't project that that's okay. I've worked with them. Eric will tell you a story of picking up an artist and the artist asking him to stop off at a bar on the way up here. And the artist got completely legless in 20 minutes?
3 tall ones within 10 minutes.
Within 10 minutes, he got drunk. He arrived at the studio. I think we did absolutely nothing. He cried and was all upset that it was his fault that he had got drunk. And I think we tried to sing and then we just packed him on a car and took him back home again. It was a complete waste of time, energy, and money. But that is rare these days. There's a zero tolerance really in the music industry for people that don't want to suit up and show up. Because if you don't want to take this seriously, there's not the kind of money and budgets to do what happened to me 10 or 15 years ago when I was waiting in a studio for 4 days. We've got to be compassionate. We've got to be understanding. We'll make sure that there's some links down below. Wherever you are, wherever you live in the world, if you have any issues with drug and alcoholism, happy to point you in the right direction. Completely supportive of it. I totally understand. If you're working with artists with those issues, especially if their life is really falling apart, there is Alcoholics Anonymous, there's Narcotics Anonymous, there's NA and AA, but there's also Music Cares, which is the Grammys Foundation for those people that have that need help in rehab and all this kind of stuff. All of my friends that have been through that, all of them will tell you they weren't creative when they were high. Once more, I'll reiterate what I said about 5 minutes ago. I get it. Band shows up, they have a few too many beers. That's okay. Maybe the singer likes to smoke a couple of joints and he can't, maybe he needs to kind of like get 20 minutes and a couple of glasses of water and a couple of packets of chips. I get it, quell the munchies. These are all things that people do and it's okay. I have no judgment against any of that. What we're talking about is incapacitated. That's a whole different thing. And that's something that you have to have a zero tolerance for because you will not win in that situation. You're not helping them by indulging them, and you're not going to be able to run a business based around, working in those kind of things. Hopefully that helps. If you are watching this and you have some issues with drugs and alcohol, please, please, please reach out. There's so many people in the music industry that are sober and that have been through this and that will help you. And, I implore you to reach out. This is a very safe place to express this. And, wherever you are in the world, not just America, not just England, not just Europe, not just Britain, UK, whatever, anywhere in the world, you can get help. And it really is a blessing. So thanks for listening. Thanks for the wonderful question. I've been producing and mixing for over 7 years now on KRK Rocket 6s. I was thinking of upgrading to a new pair of monitors. I'm honestly unsure if I should or not, because I've scoured the internet and many people say that you can mix on basic equipment and still be able to make a world-class mix. My question is, apart from the extended low end, better stereo image, flatter sound, less distortion, and more stable sound over different volumes, are there any other significant benefits of getting a pair of high-end monitors? Well, there's two answers to this question. First of all, you don't have to ever replace those speakers. Number one. That's a big one. So if you do upgrade and get yourself, KRK Rocket 6s are probably about the same size as my LP6s, my Calis, I would guess. Maybe a little smaller, I think. But anyway, essentially they're that. And by the side of them, I have two other pairs of speakers. I have my Genelec 1032s, which I have had for 20 plus years, and I've used for 20 plus years. And then the coax, the Trio 11s, which are phenomenal, blow everybody away. It's so much fun to listen to music on. Wonderful. These speakers, these 1032s, you heard me say, I've had them for 20 years. So I know how music sounds on a pair of Genelec 1032s. I can put on anybody's mix, my mix, your mix, you name it. And I know how they sound. You see where I'm going with this. Yes, if you do want to get something closer to the Genelecs, maybe one of the newer models, closer to the Focals, something in the 6,000 to 8,000, if that's really what you want to do, and you want something with extended low end, you want something with more depth, that's a big deal in this world of heavily compressed and limited mixes. Something with more depth. You don't have to get rid of your Rockets. Put your Rockets in the middle like my LP6s are. Have a pair of speakers that you know. So that's one big answer to your question. It's not like you're going to take your Rocket 6s and throw them in the trash can because something better comes along. No, what happens is you get the monitors, you get the monitors with the greater depth, with the extended low end. The depth is a big part. I don't want to skip over that. Depth, really detailed tweeters and drivers that seem to make things sort of feel a lot more three-dimensional, not just flat and hitting you in the face. Because don't get me wrong, the Rocket 6s are some really good monitors. Ulrich Wild mixes on Rockets, and Ulrich Wild is an incredibly talented producer, engineer, and mixer. He also has a lot of acquired knowledge, so he knows when something sounds good on pretty much any speakers. If he can make records on a pair of Rockets, then so can you. But if you do want that additional depth, those bigger speakers, don't throw out your Rockets. Now, why did I keep these? This question. Because you answered the question. You said, apart from extended low end, huge benefit, better stereo image, huge benefit, flatter sound, meaning more accurate, maybe not quite so colored, less distortion, huge deal. So you get to hear more detail on the highs in particular. Stable sound over different volumes, huge. Having speakers that have really consistent dynamic response, so at low volumes and high volumes. Because the problem is with using software is you reduce the dynamic range. When you start restricting the frequency response of a pair of speakers, you really restrict its volume and its dynamic range. You want to get speakers that already are relatively flat, or at least colored in a way that you find pleasing and useful. I would say the Genelecs are colored, but they're not aggressively or drastically colored. They're just colored. They have a little bit more low end, just enough for me to check my low end, a little bit more high, just enough for me to check my high end. And they are pleasing to listen to over long periods of time. The NS10s that I used to have for 3 decades made my ears bleed after a while. They were so loud and obnoxious, but I knew how to mix music on them. But I always mixed between NS10s and Genelecs. And after a while, I started to spend longer time on the Genelecs, and before you know it, I forgot to power up the NS10s one day. And then a week after not powering them, I'm like, oh, I don't need them anymore. And the problem is that NS10 ears is pretty scary because it's 7 dB lift at 1.5K. So, when you get older, if you've been using those NS10s for a long time, you're going to have a massive deficiency in those mids. So I really didn't want to deal with that as well. So I think you answered the question. All of those things are huge, extended low end, all detail, are you asking the reasons why? I mean, those are massively solid reasons. Bigger, louder, better, extended low end, extended high end, great width, great depth. Those are all the things you want. The depth in particular and the width, and hearing all of that stuff is going to be fantastic for mixing on, but also having a pair of speakers like this to impress the people that you're playing it to, having a little extra headroom on it and being able to push them is also a massive benefit. I think my future for you would be to keep your Rockets, so you know how music sounds, just like I did with the Genelecs, and then get some bigger speakers, higher quality, more depth, but go somewhere. Go to Sweetwater, Guitar Center, Vintage King. I'm going to name all the 3 big ones if you're in America. Go there and try them out and listen to them and see how they sound to you. See if you enjoy the sound of them. If you enjoy the sound of them and it makes sense to you, buy them and try them out for a few days. And if it really isn't work for you, take them back and exchange them for something else. Just don't take anybody's, mine including, don't take anybody's word for what's best. LP6s. I was the first person to talk about this. I can tell you that because Callie gave us the first pair to review. And we were immediately blown away. $300 for a pair of speakers sound absolutely phenomenal. We can get behind them and help anybody. Revolutionized the budget low end. Everybody's mixing on it. Recently, everybody's been reviewing them now, like 2 or 3 years later after they've been coming out. Now everybody's on the bandwagon and talking about how amazing they are. So we know you don't have to spend a lot of money to mix. However, I don't mix on them exclusively. The Genelecs are still the place I go because I'm used to them and because I like the extended low end. And I like that detail, and I like the depth. I like all the things that you are asking about. So I would highly, highly recommend that you keep your rockets and you expand. So have your rockets in the middle, have the bigger speakers on the outside, and I think you'll be in the perfect world. Now, you will get people debating me because they'll say only one pair, equilateral triangle. All of that is true. However, almost every mix right now has at least 2 pairs of speakers. Just pretty common. So to surmise for the 3rd time, keep your rockets, buy some bigger and better speakers that will solve all of the problems that you're looking for. And I think you'll be in a really good place. Wonderful. Thanks ever so much. Again, just to round up, if you want to donate to Music Cares, please do. And this is only if you can, because I know so many people are struggling at the moment making payments. There's so much stuff going on in the world, and I totally understand. So if you can donate to Music Cares, please do. I will say Music Cares has saved many of my friends' lives, and it has done some beautiful things to help stuff that's too personal from other people's lives. I can't share openly on this platform, but they've helped so many people through some of the most chaotic stuff. So Music Cares, God bless you. If you are somebody or you know somebody who's going through bad alcoholism and drug addiction, AA and NA both have helped so many incredible people. And then those people go into our communities and they go around and they help others. And I'm not going to out 50 people I can think of at the moment, but I can tell you there's some of the most important people in the music industry that you admire. It's interesting when I see people go, oh, I really like that guy. And it puts a little smile on my face because I go, I know that guy. And I know that guy has been through a lot and come out the other side and is now stronger because of it and is able to help many people. So if you are going through something at the moment, remember that. You're going to come out stronger. You're going to have powers you didn't even know you had. All right. Have a marvelous time recording and mixing. Thank you ever so much. Please leave any future questions that you might have for frequently asked questions down below. This is where Eric actually scours and got these really great ones today. 2 fantastic questions. Good job, Eric. So leave them down below. If you have any experience working with musicians that have drug or alcohol problems, or you want to share anything about that to help others in that situation, please do. This is really powerful and important stuff. And the next thing, of course, if you want to share any information or thoughts on speaker purchases, that would be great as well. Thank you ever so much for watching. Have a marvelous time recording and mixing, and we'll see you all again very soon. Thanks. Bye-bye.